The regular season is over, and Miami has locked up the one seed in the Eastern Conference. We'll talk about what's next as the Heat gear up for the playoffs, including potential opponents, the latest on Adebayo, Victor Latifo, and much more on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Monday playoff edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat, however you may be listening or watching on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Wes Goldberg. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Miami wrapped up the regular season with a 125-111 loss to the Orlando Magic on Sunday, but the game meant nothing to Miami, who had locked up the first seed late last week. But several games had seeding implications around the NBA. We'll talk about that a little bit later on the show. But first, Wes, in a meaningless game against a lesser opponent, the big star tonight is Victor Latifo, going off for 40 points in just his first start of the season, a season high for any individual Heat player. Oladipo finished 13 of 22 from the field, including 3 of 7 from three-point range. Wes, does that mean anything?
It doesn't, but it's cool, I guess, right? Like, there might be a segment of Heat fans that want to read a lot into this. I don't know. 40 points, really cool. Like you said, a season high for any Heat player. Tyler Herro's season high, 35 points. Bam's was 36. Jimmy Butler, his season high was 37 points. Victor Oladipo, like his last 4 games, if just look at the game log, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, right? No. His last 4 games, 21 points on 7 of 11 shooting, a DNP CD, a DNP CD, and then a 40-point burger in the final game of the regular season. He's shooting 60% in the last 2 games that he's played in. It's just weird. There's not a lot to derive from it. To me is just Victor Oladipo making the most of that moment. Like, he looked good during stretches. I'm not saying that he's not going to see any minutes. I think in the playoffs coming up, but like, you know, I don't think it makes any meaningful difference to the rotation immediately, right? And like I said, if he does get called on for some minutes, a night like this is a little encouraging and maybe gives you a little more confidence in when you do have to maybe make that kind of decision.
Let's clear the air as far as the conspiracy theorists are concerned, because I can hear them saying, "Oh, this is a master plan from the Godfather, Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra. They're both there. They're behind the scenes machinations. This is the plot all along. That they were going to save Victor Oladipo just for these moments, and then just unleash him in the playoffs against an opponent." Look, first of all, that's not how this works. One, it was the Orlando Magic, as I mentioned, not a great team by any stretch of the imagination.
And missing a bunch of their good players, which there wasn't a lot to start with.
Not sharing the floor with Tyler Herro or Kyle Lowry or Jimmy Butler or anybody. And so Victor's going to get the most of those opportunities. He's going to get a lot of touches, a lot of high usage. And that being the case, he's going to make the most of that opportunity, like you said. So I can't read too much into it. I don't think there's any grand conspiracy theory. Unfortunately, the end result is that he just can't play alongside some of Miami's best players at this point in his career, at this point in the season. And given that, he's just not going to share the floor with them. It's just not realistic to expect him to come on and have these kind of performances. Yes, he can create his own shot if he has the ball in his hands for an ample amount of time so he can make the most of those opportunities. But that's not how it works. There has to be a flow. It's got to be, going to one player, then going to another, finding those excellent opportunities. I just don't think Victor can contribute at this point of the season.
No, I mean, the whole reason they revamped the rotation the way they did was to create space for Jimmy and Bam and to some extent Tyler. And Victor Oladipo is just not a floor spacer. He's not creating space in that way. Even though he's been making those threes lately and stuff like that, opponents just don't play him that way. Opponents are going to go under on every Victor Oladipo screen. They just are. That's just the way it is. That's not to say that in the playoffs, maybe the Heat suffer some sort of injury to one of their star guys and they need Victor Oladipo. I think we will see Victor Oladipo for some reason in the playoffs. Hopefully not because of an injury. But, hey, maybe you just play him once a series and he'll just drop 40 on the opponent. Like, maybe that's the thing. Can we just talk a little bit, though, I don't want to just. He scored 40 points. It was really cool. The regular season's over. It's incredible that the regular season is over, right? I know that
Yes.
we hopefully have a long playoff run in front of us now, but I am so happy that the regular season is over and that we're finally talking about playoff basketball coming up. But it's just a really cool way for Victor Oladipo to sort of put a punctuation on what's been a really fun season, right? The number one seed in the Eastern Conference. So this shouldn't like we could talk about the consequences of scoring 40 points in the season finale if there are any. You and I are in agreement that there probably isn't any real consequences of this, but it was just
Right.
fun. It was really cool, and the broadcast was enjoying it as well. Eric Reed, I've never seen him or heard him celebrate this way. Can we just play the sound really quick?
Absolutely, please.
Oladipo! Oladipo!
Great slashing drive move by Victor. He is looking.
Woo-hoo-hoo. I mean, that's how I feel.
Amazing.
That's how I feel. Just
Amazing.
that the regular season's over and that we're talking. That's it.
Oladipo!
This is how I feel that we're gonna start the playoffs.
Oladipo!
Great
Oh,
slashing drive move.
We should provide a little
He is
background here that Eric Reed clearly was trying to antagonize his co-host there, John Crotty. I couldn't quite understand what it was, something regarding a green jacket of John Crotty's. Either way,
Yeah.
this was after Oladipo scored his last layup of the game for those 40th
To
points
get
there.
the 40th, yeah.
Yeah, to get to 40, and I guess that was enough. I don't know if there was a bet at some point. I'll be honest with you. The game didn't mean anything. It didn't have my full attention. But,
No,
you
it
know,
did not.
it's tough.
It's the other
Because we're
games.
looking forward to. Yeah, exactly. We're
It's the
looking
other
ahead
games
to
that
other
we were
games.
looking at. We had at the same time that the Heat game tipped off, we had the Boston game tipping off, the Philadelphia game tipping off. We had already seen the Brooklyn Nets win their game earlier on Sunday afternoon, and so now we know that Brooklyn was going to be the 7th seed. And so yeah, there was a lot to pay attention to that would impact the Miami Heat, other than just the Heat's own game. This game was meaningless. That's why Jimmy Butler didn't even travel with the team to Orlando. They were just like, stay home. You're good. They played some guys a handful of minutes there, but Udonis Haslem was playing 20 plus minutes tonight. Probably would have played more if he didn't get into foul trouble early in the game. So it was just one of those nights, like 35 minutes for Omer Yurtseven, 40 minutes for Haywood Highsmith. It was 40 minutes for Michael Mulder, like a 40-point night for Victor Oladipo. It was cool. They got some run, but they rested all their key players, and now we know. Now we know what the playoff picture is.
Yeah, interestingly, also not something that's going to get a lot of attention is the fact that Caleb Martin and Max Strus both sat out the game on DNP, but also Duncan Robinson getting the start. So does that mean that Martin and Strus have both leapfrogged Duncan Robinson
Yeah,
as far as rotation?
you could make that read, couldn't you? And that was my initial thing. But also, I'm wondering, is Duncan just fresh? And maybe, Caleb, we know he's been dealing with like the ankle stuff. So just, all right, you rest him. That's an easy decision. Don't worry about it. And then with Max, maybe there's something lingering there. You never know. I think you could make that read, and I would understand it. And maybe I'm just not being cynical enough.
Yeah.
I would just imagine that it's a case by case thing. Duncan, he's an Iron Man, dude. Like that guy just. If he can play, he always plays. He always seems to be really fresh. He doesn't really seem to get nagging injuries. It doesn't really seem to be a thing that he does. And maybe Max Strus was just dealing with a little something. Nothing probably to worry about, but maybe a little something.
Yeah, and Strus was dressed.
Yeah.
I think Caleb was as well. I can't recall now. I wasn't sure if he dressed or not. He wasn't officially listed as out. He just did not play today. But Duncan getting the start and, 20 minutes, 3 of 9 shooting, continued to do what he does. We got this email right after the game ended from our old pal Pete, who wrote in, at this point in the season, are we sure that Duncan Robinson is a better shooter than Victor Oladipo, following Oladipo's strong performance?
Oladipo!
I think Pete has been watching the broadcast too much. No, look, yes, Pete. Duncan is still and will always be a better shooter than Oladipo. Just based on a couple games that are pretty strong shooting performances, I'd have to say Oladipo is a capable shooter, but as you've pointed out, Wes, many times, he's not recognized around the league as that. They're still going under screens, etc. So Duncan's still the bigger threat, and I think still the more dangerous player out on the floor as of right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, regular season's over. I'm sick of talking about regular season games. Should we just one last set of credit cookies for the end of the regular season? We've got 10 marzipan cookies that we're giving out. And
Did you have some this weekend? Is that what it was?
Yeah. See, you know me so well. Yeah, I had a very nice marzipan cookie over the weekend with a glass of red wine, and I very much
Whoa.
enjoyed that.
Does
And
marzipan pair with red wine? It's steak,
at that point in my
seafood,
night, I did not
marzipan.
care if the marzipan paired with that red wine. Earlier in
They
the
were
night, I did care what was pairing with
it
that red
was
wine.
dipped in the red wine. It was still magnifique.
Magnifique. It was an Italian, so I don't. That's
Oh,
French, I think what you said. So
magnifico it was.
Magnifico. And so if we've got 10 of these marzipan cookies, all of them are going to Victor Oladipo.
Oladipo!
So
Any excuse to play the soundbite from Eric Reed, and I'm all for it. We'll move on. We'll talk about some of the other potential playoff opponents in the next segment. But first, just wanted to tell you a little bit about Built Bars. Look, it's been tough to try to stick to a diet. I know how it works. You know, you grab whatever food you can while you're on the road, especially if you're going to and from work. You don't feel like cooking at night. You don't even feel like working out sometimes. You just eat unhealthy. It's not the best way to live, and we all know that it's challenging. But there's a solution, and that solution is Built Bar. Low calorie, all the nutrients you're looking for, so many great flavors, and it provides you all the nutrients that you might be looking for in a protein bar without sacrificing any of the taste. Soft, easy to chew, 100% covered in chocolate. That's Built Bar. And again, so many flavors to choose from. You can get a mixed box with all of your favorites: mint brownie, coconut almond, white chocolate cookies and cream. Oh man, so many great flavors. You can't go wrong. And best of all, if you go to built.com right now and use the promo code LOCKED15, you get 15% off your order. So use the promo code LOCK15 if you want 15% off your next order at built.com. Just a reminder that you can always reach us via email at lockedonheat@gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskAllHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show, and as always, leave a review. We're here wrapping up the regular season. We're putting in the rearview mirror. Excuse me. None of that mattered. 82 games all out the window, but no, some importance there. Miami went 53-29 in the season. Of course, locked in the first seed. So, Wes, the big question: what happens next? Well, the play-in tournament will define exactly who Miami will be facing when
yeah.
they start off their playoff run next Sunday, a week from today.
Yeah, and that week from today is very important. We're going to talk about it later, but PJ Tucker coming back from a calf strain potentially right then, and Bam Adebayo, who was entered into health and
Good
safety
point.
protocols Sunday morning, should have plenty of time to exit those protocols in time for Miami's first playoff game next Sunday. Who will they be playing, I guess, is the question now, and the Heat will just sit and wait, just like you and me. And, for this play-in tournament, based on the game Sunday, Brooklyn is the 7th seed now in the play-in tournament. That means they will play the Cleveland Cavaliers in the 7-8 game, but also host the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is a big deal, I guess. And so, yeah, if Brooklyn wins that game, they become the 7th seed, and Miami would not have to play the Brooklyn Nets, which is really the headline, right? And they would. So if Brooklyn wins and they'll play that game on Tuesday, so we'll know whether or not the Heat have a chance to play Brooklyn or if they've dodged Brooklyn completely by Tuesday night. We'll know that. And
Good
then
point.
the winner or the loser of that game will play the winner of the 9-10 game on Friday. So the Heat we won't know the Heat's opponent until Friday night. And then in game 1 of the first round is going to be Sunday. So that's
Right.
about a 40-hour turnaround between Friday and when their game is probably going to be played on Sunday to kind of scout and figure out their opponent. But I'm
Yeah.
not worried about any of these opponents as long as it's not Brooklyn. And if you're giving Kevin Durant one opportunity at home to beat a Cleveland Cavaliers team that is limping into the playoffs right now. This is a Cavs team that had the 4th seed, the 5th seed for a big part of the season,
One
but just
seed at
too
one
many
point.
injuries. Yeah, too many injuries. They sunk into the play-in. Sucks for them. But they'll have a chance to maybe make the 8th seed if they lose to Brooklyn and then they play the winner of the Atlanta-Charlotte game. But yeah, good opportunity for the Heat, not just to dodge the Nets, but dodge like all the good teams in the Eastern Conference, because Milwaukee and Boston, they're both on the other side of the bracket too.
Yeah, no, very good point. Look, as far as the potential matchup for Miami, I keep thinking Heat fans wondering, oh, they're not going to find out till Friday night. That doesn't give them a lot of chance to prepare. Yes and no. They'll prepare for all those teams. They have scouting reports on all of them. They know what to do. They just faced Charlotte. They just faced Atlanta.
I mean,
They know
Charlotte
what
and
to do.
Atlanta is in their division. If they don't know how to play those teams yet,
Right.
that's on.
Nothing's going to happen over the next 7 days that's going to completely rewrite whatever scouting reports Miami has for those teams. And it shouldn't matter. You're the 1 seed. You won 53 games. You're loaded with star talent. You've got everything you need to eliminate any of those teams, up to and including Brooklyn. Brooklyn is the only X factor, particularly because there were reports earlier today that Ben Simmons may near a return to action at some point, that he's been working with the Nets training staff, looking to make a return at some point. Nothing cleared, nothing that defined just yet, but looking to make a return. To me, and I think you would agree with me, not only is it a bold move, it's a move that could absolutely backfire for a
Yes.
Nets team that's been scrambling all season and doesn't have any kind of sort of gel chemistry, whatever you want to call it, at this point in time. Like the
Well,
way
that's why
that
they're doing
Miami,
it, right? Is because they're a little desperate, aren't they?
right,
And I think if they were a team like in Miami's situation where, okay, let's try to work in Victor Oladipo. Okay, it's not exactly what we need. Scrap it. Let's go back to Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Caleb Martin. We're good. We're fine.
right,
Like the Nets don't have that luxury of, okay,
right,
let's scrap the Ben. They need the Ben Simmons thing to work out if they're going to win
yeah,
the finals. I truly believe that. And so, yeah, like you said, tough task to try to work him back in during the playoffs. I mean, that's pretty insane. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't know that I even believe that Ben Simmons is going to come back, but Adrian Wojnarowski reported it, and that's as
yeah.
good as gold sometimes. But it's not necessarily that he's going to play. It just sounds like they're trying to work to the point where he can play in time for the first round. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, I was just saying that desperation point is a great one, because it's like, just think back about what happened when Miami pulled the big three together. If they
Yeah.
had, completely flamed out that first year, this Heat team was considered a disappointment, and they lost to the finals to an all-time great in Dirk Nowitzki, and they were still discounted as, oh, they're not a particularly good team. They assembled this big three or whatever in Brooklyn. They've traded away James Harden. They've had to deal with Kyrie Irving on and off the court, Kevin Durant injuries, etc. They're in year 2 now, and if they don't, somehow they might lose in the first round of the playoffs to the Boston Celtics. Like, I mean, that's a very realistic possibility. They need something. They need a spark. Could you imagine if that had happened in the second year? Miami wound up winning a championship in that lockout shortened year. This could be a complete disaster for Brooklyn if they don't do something drastic.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, and that's the Ben Simmons story. To go back to the thing you were talking about, scouting opponents and understanding that this is a little bit of a tricky spot for Miami. To your point, it's not, only because you don't really need to scout Charlotte and Atlanta or Cleveland in order to win that series. If we're being honest, the only team that the Heat have to really scout is Brooklyn, and they'll know whether or not they need to scout them by Tuesday night, right? Like, you can take Monday basically off, Tuesday basically off, get rest, do what you need to do. Handle things internally, iron out whatever you need to iron out. And then by Tuesday, if Brooklyn is, depending on what happens with that Nets game, if they win that game, then you don't have to worry about them because they're the 7th seed and they're playing the 2 seed. And then you're just like, all right, cool. Like, I guess we're playing one of these other 3 teams that we're going to walk over in the first round. But if Brooklyn for some reason loses to Cleveland on Tuesday night, then you just spend the rest of the week scouting Brooklyn. And if Brooklyn loses somehow to Charlotte or Atlanta, then you're like, all right, cool, great, we're fine. And if they beat Atlanta and Charlotte in this hypothetical situation, that would be the expectation if they had to play in that second game, then you're fully scouted. You've just spent the week scouting. So the Nets will probably be the only team the Heat scout all week in case if they for some reason lose on Tuesday night.
2 wrinkles that have been reported. One, Gordon Hayward will not participate in the play-in tournament for the Charlotte Hornets. So I don't know that would make a huge difference for Miami one way or the other. The other, that Cavaliers center Jared Allen may near a return at some point. When asked earlier today, this is Sunday, Coach JB Bickerstaff said, if he's ready to go, he'll go. So this is about Allen participating on Tuesday's game. I don't know what to make of that. If anything, I don't think he's near a return. I'm sure we would have heard something.
That would be like maybe a first, if they make the first round, like maybe a first round appearance within a week. But to be like out for the season and then Sunday being like, I don't know, maybe he'll play on Tuesday. Like that doesn't seem like realistic to me.
Right.
What do you? So let's make some predictions here. What do you think ends up happening?
I think Brooklyn wins easily on Tuesday, and they wind up advancing past Cleveland, who's been in a free fall, as you pointed out, and they've gone through quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. But I think Cleveland then takes on the winner of Charlotte, Atlanta. You and I disagree. You think Atlanta will win it.
Yes.
I think Charlotte will win it. I think Charlotte's got just enough X factor in their favor, just enough zero fucks given so that they could propel them past a Hawks team that has kind of just been dealing with a yoke of injury and outsized expectations following a run to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. So to me, I think this is not their season. Nate McMillan just couldn't seem to get this team together. So I think Cleveland knocks off either Atlanta or Charlotte. And in my opinion, I think Cleveland takes on Charlotte and they'll wind up winning, and Cleveland will be Miami's opponent.
Okay, so you're picking Cavs. Okay, interesting. that could certainly be the case. They still have got Darius Garland and Kevin Love and a bunch of guys
Sixth man of
there.
the year, Kevin Love, 32 points.
Where's my Tyler Hero drop?
Appreciate that.
No. So I actually think it'll be Atlanta. I know that they've been disappointing, but basically until they ran into the Heat, they were hot. They had won 5 games in a row or something. Recently, Trae Young is playing awesome. I think he's probably the best player on the court in a game against Charlotte, and certainly and maybe even against Cleveland, depending on how you feel about Darius Garland versus Trae Young. But Trae Young has more of a chance of making the All NBA team than Darius Garland does. So I would say probably Trae Young gets the edge there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I pick Atlanta. Either way, it doesn't matter. I'm with you. The key is, does Brooklyn win Tuesday? You and I think that they do. And then it's gonna whichever one of those teams it is. I think it'll be Atlanta. I think they'll win 2 games. You think it'll be Cleveland. Either way, it should be a walkover for the Heat. It should be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Sweep? Do you think it's a sweep?
Against any of those teams? Miami versus Cleveland. I think that's a sweep. Miami versus Charlotte.
That's a sweep.
They
win that. They might win that in 3
No,
games.
you know what? I could see a gentleman's sweep there. Just because, like Charlotte.
You watched them score 140. You were there. Wait,
Yes.
were you there? Yeah.
No,
you were
I
there.
was.
Oh,
Was
no,
I?
we recorded after. I don't remember.
No,
They
that
scored
was Friday
140 points.
You're right.
140 points on Charlotte.
Yeah, no, I get it. But it's worked in the other way too. Like Charlotte's defense is porous, but their offense can catch fire, and Miami's offense isn't always going
Fair
to
enough.
ignite the way it did. And that's just enough of an X factor that makes it impossible to predict, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
It could just as easily be a sweep. I think they could also steal a game too. It's not a knock on Miami, nor is it any kind of praise for Charlotte that they're just crazy enough to potentially steal a game here and there. I think Cleveland is just. They started off. Look, Cleveland is another team with outsized expectations, or has exceeded their expectations for the season. Like they started off really, really great, and all of a sudden you're starting to see the formations of a team for the first time since LeBron left years ago. Having said all that, now they're a very good team. They've got some potential. They beat Miami a couple of times. There's just enough length and defense there.
Well coached.
But then they're well coached. Absolutely. So I think they're a good team, but I also think they're kind of.
I could see Cleveland getting a game. Maybe Atlanta, if Trae Young goes like nuclear in one game, I could see that maybe being the case. But I'm ready to just call it a sweep. I don't care.
All right, let's do it. Miami goes. They're Miami
Let's
in 4. Why not? Let's do it.
8-4. Let's do it. You mentioned X factors. I know that we have a couple X factors that we have to talk about.
Yeah, we'll bring those up in the next segment, so stay tuned for that. But first, BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all of your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs. Yes, and the start of the Major League Baseball season. Do you follow baseball at all? Are you excited about the Marlins season?
Well, they just lost. What is it? Their first 2 games by 1 run, or their first 3 games by 1 run each, or something. So a lot more of the same. They lost like a record number of games by 1 run last season.
Only 160 games left, so I think they can figure it out. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. Listen to Locked On Now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch it on the Locked On NBA YouTube channel. Man, I was just thinking about the Marlins and baseball in general. 162 games. 82 games has been exhausting. I can't imagine what it's like covering 162 games. But if you're interested in following the MLB, make sure to stay tuned to Locked On MLB or Locked On Marlins. Both of those shows are great, and they'll provide all the information that you're looking for 162 games later. So that's where
maybe
you
the
get
playoffs. Maybe the playoffs this year. Some people
Awesome.
calling the Marlins a sleeper.
All right. But who's not a sleeper? The Miami Heat, the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference, 53-29.
Not dangerously looming.
Not dangerously looming. They've been dangerously beating the shit out of opponents for the last half of the season or so. So I think we could consider them.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people kind of dismissive of them, not really counting them as a title favorite. Kind of, they sort of sleptwalked into the #1 seed, etc. Just because they lack, as you've said before, that top tier talent. But they make up for it in a number of ways as a great team with great chemistry, with great depth, at least for most of the season that's been on display.
And let's talk about this. I mean, like, whatever. Do you think that they deserve the number 1 seed? Are they the best team in the East? Like, you could think whatever you want to think about the Miami Heat, but here's the fact. If Brooklyn wins on Tuesday, which we expect that they will, then the Heat have the easiest path of any team in the NBA to the NBA Finals. They do. The Heat, if they will have to play Cleveland, Charlotte, or Atlanta, which we both agree that they will sweep one of those teams. And then they play the winner of Philadelphia versus Toronto. Good teams, playoff teams, but not teams that I'm scared of the way that I would be scared of Boston or Milwaukee or Brooklyn. And so, you play them, and then you get to, if you win those first 2 rounds and you're in the Eastern Conference Finals, you're going to play one of Milwaukee, Boston, or Brooklyn in the Eastern Conference Finals. Whoever makes it out of that end of the bracket, that side of the bracket. And so the Heat have the easiest path. They're only going to have to play one of the good teams in the Eastern Conference to get to the NBA Finals. That's it. Period. And it's nothing against Philadelphia or Toronto. Like, those are feisty teams, but I don't think anybody, based on what we've seen, thinks that Philadelphia is ready to get to the NBA Finals. The James Harden thing has not worked out the way that they expected. Toronto is frisky and competitive and a great story, but they're not going to the finals this year. And so you couldn't have asked for a better break. And it's so funny how we were talking about how, hey, should the Heat maneuver their way in the standings to avoid this and this and that and whatever.
Right.
And they just played out their season. They won the number 1 seed. They earned the number 1 seed. They have the best home court record in the Eastern Conference. And now they have home court advantage through the playoffs on the easiest side of the bracket. They earned this spot, and they have, like I said, the easiest path to the NBA Finals. And it couldn't have broken better for them.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what you play for. This is why you keep, going into every game with the same laser-like focus, intensity, etc. This is why you stick to the game plan no matter what. This is why you never purposely lose games. It doesn't make any sense. You do what you do and let the chips fall where they may. You deal with everything as it comes, or also you get rewarded. And Miami has cleared up the easiest path, as you said, to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, to the NBA Finals. And this is exactly what they're hoping for. This is the best case scenario for Miami. So their chances are great. Let's look ahead then. I guess you had kind of teased it before the end of the last segment, but potential X factors there.
Well, I mean, we got to talk about the PJ Tucker, right? I mean, we didn't get a chance to record because the news came down, what was it, Friday afternoon? And we had already recorded our last podcast for last
Atlanta,
week. So, he suffered a grade 1 calf strain in that previous game against the Hornets. Yeah. And so that tip, and they said that they being the Miami Heat said that PJ Tucker will be reevaluated within the week. So we can expect him to be reevaluated like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at some point during that time frame. And because it's a grade 1 strain, that typically about a week is how long it takes to heal, which is why I assume the Heat said that they will evaluate him again in a week, but no guarantee that he'll be ready to play, right? And so the Heat play their first playoff game, no matter who it is, on Sunday, April 17th. So a little bit, it's a question whether or not PJ Tucker will be available for the start of a round 1 series. Now, ultimately, it might not matter, right? Caleb Martin, he has started a handful of games this year. He started against the Hawks in PJ's place at power forward. I could see them going in that route again. They could maybe spot Markieff Morris minutes there, depending on the matchup, if they think that's the right way to go. But notable that they went with Caleb when first sort of presented with the question of who do we play in PJ Tucker's spot. They went ahead with Caleb Martin. So I think that would probably be the default. But worth keeping an eye on, right?
Yeah. It's also Easter Sunday, so I will go on a limb and you can tell you that you can put all your Easter dominoes in the basket and make sure that PJ Tucker will be playing on Sunday. Like, I can't.
You're confident?
Yeah, I think so. I think he'll be available. I think you sit him out for the last 2 games of the season that were absolutely meaningless and against lesser opponents, and you don't take any chances because he's important to what you're doing. Now, maybe it's not important to trot him out there for a game 1 of a playoff series against either Cleveland or Charlotte or Atlanta. Again,
right.
We're assuming that, but
if it's one of those teams, that's a good point. Yeah.
But I also think that he relishes the opportunity to compete in the playoffs, and I don't think he's likely to see the bench. I mean, look, I'm certainly not privy to anything. I'm not reporting anything in the Heat medical staff or anything like that. But that's just my thought process.
You want to be careful with the strains. I think about like Kevin Durant. He had the calf strain. He comes back. He tears his Achilles, right, in the 2019 playoffs. Like, but that was a freak instance, right? Like, that doesn't really, like, every time a guy comes back from a calf strain, he doesn't tear his Achilles, right? So It's just something that you want to be careful with, though. It is. And so, but you're right. Like, if it is one of these walkover teams, maybe you're like, you know what? Maybe we don't really need PJ. Let's just kind of let him rest it out and sort of see, at least let's go through one game and see how it plays out. Whatever. That could definitely be a possibility. And then Bam Adebayo, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but he's in health and safety protocols. Should not be a concern. I'm sure that he is locking down. He's going to make sure that he is able to exit those protocols in time for the Sunday playoffs, but it was just worth mentioning.
Yeah. Anything else as far as like potential X factors? We'll probably talk about those. We'll talk about big pictures, not knowing who Miami's opponent's going to be. We'll talk about bigger pictures regarding Miami as they enter into the playoffs. So make sure to stay tuned for those episodes later on this week. Anything else before we wrap up today's episode?
No, I'm just really excited to watch this play-in tournament.
Hell yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of the play-in tournament in general.
Why not?
It's just a little
LeBron?
superfluous for me. It's just like, no, I mean, it's just like, it's kind of a waste of time. Right? Atlanta and Charlotte shouldn't really have any business being in the playoffs. They're not good. They stink. Like, why would they get to be in this fake postseason thing? It's ridiculous. And in the West, it's even worse. Like, the
But
Pelicans,
you said
the
like a
Spurs.
week ago during that 41-41 season, 2016-17, that Miami had gone, they would have been in the play-in tournament.
Yeah.
They probably would have won.
That's all. I'm not saying that they should have been. They also went 10-31 or whatever it was in the first half. They shouldn't be in the playoffs. They shouldn't have been in the playoffs that year. It was a fun second half, but yeah,
you can't have it both ways. You can't have your marzipan and drink the red wine too. I'm sorry, that's just not how it works.
I did do that, and it was wonderful. But no, the bright side of this is, if you're the Heat, is you got to get like this weird fake bye week thing, right? And that's good, for a team that just went through a full 82 game season, dealing with a couple of nicks and bruises right now to PJ Tucker and some other guys. You have a week to sort of just, back off, relax, get right, get healthy, and then start this, what is hopefully a long postseason run.
Yeah, I feel bad for whoever Miami's first round opponent's going to be, because I get the feeling that they're going to come out rested and ready and looking to just plow their way through on their way to the NBA Finals. But we'll report everything that we can here on this show. We'll get you covered every step of the way. So make sure to stay on Locked On Heat. And thank you so much for those of you who have been checking us out every day and for making us your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NBA. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. And make sure to please subscribe to our show and leave a review. This is David Ramil signing off for now. Thanks so much for joining me, Wes.
Wrap it up, B.